I would like to invite onto the stage again Alistair Welsh and Brian Johnson and Steve Thurston from the the Navigator Quarter, as we are now calling it, and Rachel Randall again. Wasn't Rachel good, talking about the 2050 programme and all the things we've got to think about? So they're going to come up and occupy these seats. I'm going to stand to one side, and ladies and gentlemen, the floor will be yours. Kate, Nicola and Lauren have the microphones and are spread out throughout the room. Hands up, who wants to do the first one? At the front, please. Kate is coming. And at home, I hope you'll be able to follow all of these. You might not be able to see the person asking the question, but certainly hear them. Your name, sir, and what it is.
I'm David Kendall from Optima Electric Boats. We're a new start-up business developing an electric leisure boat that's fundamentally very different to anything that's out there at the moment, and there's already a lot of electric boats. We're trying to manufacture in the UK. We would like to manufacture in the UK. We are currently building a 10-metre boat, but we're looking as to how we commercialise this, how we productionise it, to potentially build hundreds of boats. And I'm just wondering what you think the area can offer in that sort of support. I mean, obviously skills is a massive issue, but one of the things I would love to see is a sort of incubation unit for start-up manufacturers. And we see sort of innovation centres for businesses, for desk space, but we don't see that sort of thing for manufacturing. Somewhere where we could go and build the first 2-3 boats, get the business established, and then move into our own facility. I'm just wondering if anything like that's ever been considered.
Okay, who would like to take that? Should we? Brian, it's one for you, but maybe Rachel as well. This is the sort of business you want to encourage, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, actually, music to our ears, I would say, because, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at different ways how we can, with 2050, and I can say, being on the board, we haven't actually thought of that, and actually we are looking for new innovative ideas about how we can actually grow in this arena, because it's one of our key tenets of those 7 strategies. So
it seems strange there hasn't been thought about an incubation unit.
It's, as he quite rightly says, it's always done about businesses and business coming together.
But not for manufacturing.
But not for manufacturing. So Stuart's here with me here and can help out. But I think it's something we would seriously look at, isn't it?
Good. Brian, a lot of manufacturing I see on the island in Cowes is pushed out because there's a leisure industry as well, isn't there? And the access that needs to the waterfront can compete. So you're going to have to break a few eggs to make this work.
I was going to comment that a few years ago, I used to be on the LEP board with Rachel. We did a survey of economically active available sites in the Solent region that had water access. And although we have however many 100 miles of coast it is, in fact we have remarkably few sites that are available, and that's one of the challenges, I think. I don't know whether you actually need a waterfront site or not, but
depends how big we get.
Yeah, it depends how big we get, he says. Yes.
What I would say is that within the Freeport sites, particularly within some of the ones on the waterfront side in the New Forest, a number of those, the team from Foley Waterside are here somewhere. I think there's people from Solent Gateway here, but a number of those sites are, on the face of it, looking for businesses like yours. Now, in terms of that incubation centre, the challenge has always been that and Rachel's the LEP chair, that it's quite difficult to know exactly who's going to set them up. So we have generally been in the position that the LEP and the government don't want. We're not the people who run incubation centres, but we might help to fund them if someone else asks. So there's been 2 things that have stopped it really. One is that no organisation has set it up, and the second is that we've never quite known where to put it. But I think this Freeport is going to unlock some maritime land, and I look around the room. Aldred, would you like a comment? Come on.
Right, can we get a microphone over?
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. Aldred Drummond from Waterside.
Thanks, Brian. Yes, it sounded like a great idea. I was just writing it down on my phone, and particularly if the LEP will support it, we'd be very keen.
Right, there you go. Deal done within the first 5 minutes of difficult questions. Is that all right? Oh, he's nodding at the front.
Stuart's
Good.
going to say a few words.
Stuart, perhaps, yes? Right, so Stuart Baker as well.
Yeah. Stuart Baker, I work at the LEP and been supporting with Brian on the Freeport as well. Mentioned earlier, I think Alistair and Brian mentioned about the seed funding. So one of the seed funding projects that we're looking at is an innovation hub. We're kind of in the process of speccing that. I think the idea of a kind of incubation for manufacturers is something that has come up over the years, because I think a lot of it's contract driven, isn't it? And there's a big investment in hoist stocks and things like that there are a challenge for businesses. So yeah, I certainly will perhaps have a chat afterwards. We're sat next to each other, so let's do it.
Okay, thanks. Electric boats, they're the future, don't you know? Next question, please. There's one over there, please. Lauren's got the microphone. Sorry. Was the question just there first? Okay, yeah, but if we take this question here first of all, if that's all right, thanks. Okay, yep.
It should work, I've been told. My name is Bahaj, I'm from the University of Southampton. Really pleasing to see the presentations made about the Freeport. I heard a lot about social, I heard a lot about economics, a little bit about social. And I heard a lot about net zero, which is really a bigger opportunity than the Freeport, especially for this region. I just wanted to ask, what are the pillars that are put in place to develop the Freeport in conjunction with the net zero?
Thank you.
And the next question is related to health. Health and well-being, which is very important from the last speaker.
Yes.
I see there is going to be pressure on seafront. Mm-hmm. And I really would like to see that the public have more access to seafront under the Freeport than we currently have.
Right.
What is it we're going to do about that?
Alistair Welsh, let us in. Southampton people can't get to the seafront. It's not just as Dee says that there are other barriers. And is shipping really the 6th worst nation for pollution?
So I'll plead the fifth on is shipping the whatever, because I truly don't know. I mean, the IMO, which is the International Maritime Marine Organization, which is a UN organization, if you like, the challenge with shipping is because crudely every ship's registered to somewhere else, then if one nation makes a rule, then ultimately you might just change where your ship's registered. So you need to have global agreed targets and global change. And we now have a whole series of targets which require very clear reductions in emissions over time. And more importantly, there are certain gateway points at which if your ship doesn't meet a certain threshold, essentially it can't operate. And just as with, let's say, aircraft historically, where there were noise issues, and every single chapter that comes through, the aircraft have to get quieter, we're seeing that with shipping coming through rapidly. But added to that, there are particular changes with some shipping where we're seeing more ships in port, either running with solar when they're in port. Some of the cars should have solar roofs so they can operate with solar in port. Cruise lines, which increasingly we'd love to plug into shore power. We need the capacity of the grid. But there's lots that's going on locally. But internationally, of course, ships historically have used the heavy, claggy oils, if you like. Now they're on ultra-low sulfur diesel and so on in the area around here because we want to make sure we're reducing emissions. Lots and lots more to do. Long term, the big question is, what are they going to run on? Is it nuclear? Is it ammonia? Is it forms of hydrogen? And truly, big question, which we have to have a worldwide solution, which the UN is working on, because it's a big challenge. But we're doing what we can locally to reduce emissions. And of course, we meet absolutely the EU requirements around air quality locally, and we want to make sure we continue to improve air quality, because whilst we're well below the threshold requirements, we want to make sure we continue improving it. But the question about access to the waterfront...
The feeling in Portsmouth and in Southampton, when they were talking about bringing in payments for vehicles going into the city, was that this would happen naturally as we move towards it. Do you feel the same as with shipping, or is there going to... I mean, Bahar from the university says that this is a bigger opportunity than the Freeport to try and meet the net zero.
Yeah, so I think if we think that with, let's say... firstly, in terms of the air quality and the issues we had a few years ago and the concerns about charges, what we were saying was the effect of new technology coming into vehicles and so on will mean there's a natural reduction anyway. We were below the threshold, and rather than going to breach it, we will continue to improve, and that's been the case. But not just to rely on that. We introduced, for example, in the port here, a system where we have a charging regime in place where if your HGV going to the container port is over a certain age, then you pay a premium. And the intent is if you've got a choice of vehicles, you'll send your cleanest vehicle here. But we're not stopping you from coming. We want to incentivise you to the cleanest vehicle here, and that I think is a positive thing. In terms of shipping, generally speaking, the activity we see, deep sea, intercontinental, the market within any shipping line will say you want to use the least fuel you can, especially now with the cost of it. And so the ships we see, generally speaking, are the newest ships because they go the greatest distances, and they are by some margin yet more efficient and cleaner than the ships before them. And yes, they have scrubbers on board and heaven knows what. But the newest ones we're seeing coming in now, and I was talking to someone yesterday, an Italian line, who are bringing in a whole load of further improvements in the next couple of years. So we're going to see that really continue to improve. So it will be improving, but the question is the rate of improvement quick enough?
Okay, Brian's keen to get in, but I'm first of all going to say to Steve Thurston, your airport nearly closed. It would have been better for the environment and the well-being of people in Southampton, wouldn't it, if it had?
I think the airport is very important for the region. It's important to sort of serve this. You know, if we don't have an airport here, people will still need to fly to wherever destinations need to travel to. That just means they will probably jump in their cars, drive 2 hours up to the next nearest airport. So I think Southampton Airport as a regional airport provides a very important service to the growth of the region, to provide that connectivity around the area. And, you know, we are looking at this. Aviation is challenging itself, just like the marine industry is. We're looking at new fuels, doing trials. And one of the key things we're looking at the Freeport is how can we bring on that, because we're going to deliver the Freeport, we're going to deliver warehousing, logistics, manufacturing. That requires vehicles to come in and out of our site, whether it's large vehicles. How can they get access to new fuels? So one of the key areas we're looking at is hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuels, and how can we perhaps protect an area of our land for supply of that, because it's not just the generation, it's how do you get access to those fuels at the different sites.
How far off are these new fuels? How long do we have to keep having polluting planes flying from Southampton?
Sustainable aviation fuels are happening now. Planes are flying, being trialled with that. Electric is very much behind the game. We're seeing very much smaller aircraft, but that's where Southampton Airport provides that opportunity for the future. When you see the new generation of more sustainable fuels, such as electric planes coming in, it will be the smaller planes first that are able to take advantage of that technology. And those are the planes that fly out of Southampton and will be flying out of the airport in the future.
Despite the longer runway?
Sorry?
Even with the longer runway?
Even with the longer runway.
So they will still be less polluting than the ones we've got at the moment, or
yes.
we have had.
Aviation will continue to develop.
Okay. Brian Johnson, perhaps, and perhaps I'll let you come back on some of the answers as well, if that's all right. But is it true that the Freeport wouldn't have happened had the airport closed? And tell us about alternative fuels at Exxon.
I don't think that is connected. I mean, the Navigator Quarter is one of our key sites, and as I commented, it's been quite difficult getting to enough land together from that. And so if we'd lost the airport and lost that initiative, it would have been a lot more difficult to put it together. But the two aren't totally linked. What I was going to say in answer to the question, obviously neither the Freeport or the LEP, and Rachel might want to come in, are the employers of people. You know, other companies do this, and what we get to do is lever them. So with that being said, because I don't want to overpromise, if you look at where we are with the Freeport business case, so the full business case has got an entire section on sustainability, which the government are measuring us on, and the representatives of DLAC are here, but they won't approve it if they don't think it's good enough. That's absolutely clear. The second thing is each of the tax sites has got site-specific agreements. So when people have put land into these, they have also signed with the Freeport and the rating authority agreements. And if the local council, who are the rating authority, do not agree that this is the sort of business they want, they won't get the tax breaks. So if you take the Navigator Quarter, which Steve's pointing, you've got Councillor Pretty over there from Eastleigh, and his council are going to be on it to make sure, is this what we want in the region? And so we've got a number of levers within it. And finally, the retained rates, which Alistair was talking about, they get agreed by the Freeport board that includes all of the council leaders and all the rating authorities. And again, we will use that to drive green initiatives.
But can you really use levers on an international company like Exxon once they've been given this these tax breaks?
I think it's the other way round. I don't know if I was chatting to my colleagues from Exxon earlier who are here, but they are pushing being a hub going forward for hydrogen on a global basis. So I think we have a real opportunity in the region. I agree that it's a fantastic opportunity, and we have huge infrastructure here. I don't know if my Exxon colleagues would like to comment on that.
Who's here from Exxon? Always good to hear from them when we do. Perhaps we could get a microphone over there. Thanks very much. Yes, Nicola's just coming over. Tell us what the plan is for hydrogen and can we use it?
It's Riccardo Cavallo, I'm the Foley Referral Manager. The plan, it's public knowledge, we've signed a memorandum of understanding with SGN and GAG to explore the possibility to produce blue hydrogen on our Foley sites, which is exciting because we can actually produce here chemical product with no impact to the environment and be able to actually route the hydrogen to Southampton houses and look to a lot of opportunity, really use the refinery to start sparking the hydrogen industry in this area. And we look into where we can sequester the CO2. There are opportunities that we're looking at, can we actually find a way to sequester it without shipping it out? So it's quite interesting, I would say. As we're public, we're looking to, if we progress this with the support of the Freeport and the right policy in place, we can get to first hydrogen production as early as 2030, which is quite exciting, I would say.
The government's been coming up with new windfall taxes, they don't want to call them that, levies, but they're going to be giving you a tax break, is that right? I mean, why do you need to be part of the Freeport?
We have valuable land that can be used to spark the hydrogen industry in this area. It's a unique opportunity
you can't
to be
do it without that tax break.
Today, hydrogen production needs to have the right policy in place to be developed. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to see hydrogen production anywhere in the world. That's the simple reality. And ExxonMobil has been very public. We're going to invest $15 billion over the next 5 years in low carbon investment. Even without a return, it will be in the place of the world that is going to have the right policy.
Right. Thank you for those answers.
Okay. Peter, can I just make one last comment?
Okay, go on then.
Go on. If you take the water side, I think we all know it's an area that needs levelling up. They need more jobs down there. And actually, the Freeport has allowed us an intervention which is going to release land. And if you ask around the room, the lack of facilities to drive jobs and drive prosperity here are one of the key things. So the Freeport initiative has allowed us to package together land which we hope is going to change the fortunes of that waterside in terms of jobs and prosperity going forward. And I know Councillor Heron's here and he might want to comment, but I hope you'd agree, Edward.
Yes, and yeah, high-paying jobs as well.
Yes,
yes,
absolutely.
I see the people at actually the contractors have just had a 9.2% pay rise. Is that right, Ricardo? He's not nodding. Some of the workers at Fawley have just had a 9.2% pay rise. Anyway,
I think
Rachel.
Yeah, I was going to say that I could probably comment a bit on the health and welfare
part
of the question, in that that is one of the 7 key pillars of the Solent 2050 strategy, is the health and welfare of the people who live and work in our region. And we took note, because originally it wasn't in there. And then through the consultation phase that we had with lots of people, is that actually that came loud and clear to us that needed to be part of our strategy. So we included that, and through the influence. So that really shows that we're listening. And actually, we're really quite excited that actually it's going forward, and very relish that. And I think it's really important that we do take notice of it. So it's one of the key 7 pillars linked then to with the employment and skills side of things.
Can we have the microphone back here just to get your reaction? Just briefly, if you don't mind.
Very briefly, I would not agree with blue hydrogen. I would agree with green hydrogen. And I would agree that hydrogen should be done at Foley at your station, but utilizing green electricity and pumping the hydrogen across to all the assets like the power station, the incinerator, the CHPs in the city through a dedicated pipeline. And if you really wanted to understand how this could be done, please let's have a chat.
Good, bringing people together. Oh, and there was a bit of applause for that one. Right. Another question, please. Hopefully another sticky, difficult one. At the back. Sir, your name, please.
Gordon Meadow from a company called Seabot. It was just in response to the first, actually, speaker. So Seabotics, the National Centre for Operational Excellence in Marine Robotics, was set up in November. And it's actually been added as part of the Solent Freeport business case to provide development, training and assurance facilities for companies like yours, where we put facilities and expertise through an alliance of organisations to help you with the capital infrastructure you can't afford as a startup, to develop your product, to develop operational capability as well as product development. So there are now 5 sites, and the alliance of organisations to provide, better together collection of services is growing. So it's providing world-class training kind of around the world. We have a footprint now in Spain. We're exporting to the Middle East as well as trying to export to the US. So there are facilities in the UK. It is happening, but it was just to kind of make that point.
And the lot of money that's come out of the government recently from in response to Maritime UK calling for investment. Another question, please. Just over there.
Hello, I've got one from
Alison's got some from our online viewers. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question from Claudia Merg from We Make Southampton Community Media. She asks, what are the key skills needed for the next development stage of the Port of Southampton within Solent Freeport, and are the necessary courses available regionally?
Right, yes, skills, a very important one. Who wants to take that, Rachel or Brian? Rachel?
I can start with the process, and very much aligned with the Freeport is the Solent LEP's part of the 2050 strategy and the skills strategy. And each of the Freeports and part of that have asked for support in actually developing skills forums so that we can actually then be looking at and developing and ensuring, because the trail of the skills is going to actually be gradually building up. So each of those forums are going to be actually identifying what they need to be for the skills and then how those courses can be developed. And one of the big key things that has happened recently and very much part of the skills strategy is the Institute of Technology that has been developed with the Solent University and other colleagues and FE colleges in the region to actually develop and make sure that those skills are available and for the Freeport to operate in the areas as well as the wider Solent LEP region.
Steve, we've seen problems with skill shortages in the travel industry, haven't we, in recent days? Yeah. What's your requirement?
We have multiple requirements, mainly in sort of key airport operational. But from a Freeport, that sort of as we come forward, it's very key that we are seen to work with local education establishments going forward. We have some key ones definitely around the Navigator Quarter, but one of the areas we've seen an opportunity is working with Southampton University actually with their science park, how we can create opportunities within the land for innovation centres which bring in a multitude of support for upstarting companies across the region.
Yeah, it's a big issue, isn't it, Brian? And the Freeport itself, I'll take it in a slightly different way. People see the possibility that Freeport could be the Wild West, could be some sort of free-for-all, and low-skilled jobs possibly, less health and safety. What will you do to address that?
Yes, the first thing is that there is absolutely no different in employment legislation in English free ports than anywhere else in the UK. So this sense that the Wild West is just a misunderstanding based on linking what we've called free ports with what other nations have called free ports. So the employment in there has the same basic as everywhere else, but that's not what we're looking for. In none of these sites or in the ambition or the LEP's ambition are we looking for the low-paid jobs. What we're looking for is skilled jobs. And going back to my point about site-specific agreements, what we're looking for is for high-tech businesses to move in who have got skilled jobs and good, sustainable jobs.
Will you be able to pick and choose, do you think, given what's on offer?
The site-specific agreements have got real teeth. I mean, it's easy to. You were sort of commenting to Ricardo that surely he didn't need a free port to do something with his land, but actually in handing it over to the free port, it puts some constraints around it. So yes, it's great that we've got the land, but I think, and maybe one of the representatives of the council will comment, but there are some real, but by doing it within a free port, it gives back to councils some on top of the normal planning rules, some issues where they can use those tax breaks to encourage the business they want and discourage the businesses they don't want.
Interesting. Yeah, and of course you're borrowing against your revenue, so you've got a good seed corn to get going with.
Yeah, within reason. I don't know whether. Go on, Edward. I can see you. Do you want to?
Have we got a microphone that could come down to the front? We'll have to wait just for 1 second. And that was an interesting point about Fawley as well. There we go. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't really have much to add to that. I think the key issue with the tax side in particular is there is a give and take. There is an incentive there for businesses for investments through tax breaks, but the landowners are giving something up in that. But they are committing themselves to certain objectives in there. Otherwise, there is no point in them being in there. They will not receive the business rate reductions. They will not receive the tax breaks. They will not receive the capital incentives. So there is in this a partnership. And that, I think the key point of this is, what is it that we as the local authorities who are surrendering equally in this, something in this, looking for out of it, and that is around those other two key objectives for the free port. They are around the net zero with nature, and I think it is important, particularly in an area like the Few Forest, to recognise that it is both of those. It is both the net zero and the wider environmental and ecological sustainability of it. But the main one for here is in areas like the New Forest, where we do have pockets of deprivation, and just because they are smaller pockets and sometimes more isolating and more spread out than some other areas of the UK, makes them no less debilitating and no less challenging for our residents. But because we have those pockets of deprivation, our key issue is around the skills and the access to better employment. We have, within the New Forest, even in our deprived areas, high levels of employment, but what we have there is employment that is not at the skill level nor the income levels that we want to see. Okay. So our key objectives in this partnership is working with those site owners and with those businesses that will come in, and with those businesses that will come in to prepare and construct and build these sites, to make sure we have the skills, training and advancement opportunities for our residents to make this something that is both successful for our businesses, but also for the people that live there and have to support it.
Super. I suppose one point as well, just to come back to you, is that there's a Conservative authority in the New Forest. You've got Liberal Democrat, you've got Labour-controlled authorities. You've also got, military ports, commercial, you've got absolutely everything. How are you going to herd this lot together?
Actually, we've seen a lot of cooperation. I think most people cooperate for the region, and that has not generally been an issue. I think it has made our offering better, that we've got different points of view pulling the free port together. But it also goes back to my point that if you for a moment forget the word free port and just think of it as an enhanced skills, employment and sustainability zone, it's hard not to get behind it. And that's generally what we found, that across all the regions, people are up for this.
I don't see so much going to Portsmouth as I might have thought, to the international port. It seems an awful lot of New Forest and Southampton.
The Portsmouth International Port is one of the customs sites. Interestingly, Dunsbury Farm, which is, although it's within the rating authority of Havant, it's actually owned by Portsmouth Council. So Portsmouth will do quite well out of this, and they're a key partner. David was here, but he looks like he's not there anymore. But yes, they're one of our key partners, and in fact our accountable body. So there's a.
We've got to stop Portsmouth and Southampton fighting as well over new cruise ships.
They never fight. It's true. Yeah.
Okay, I'll believe that. Another question from the audience, or from our online audience, if you put that in the chat, and then you will get it.
next.
You can spot them and I can't. Here, sorry, yes, right in front of us. Thanks very much, Alison.
Hello, I'm Sian Campbell, also from the University of Southampton. We've talked a lot about skills and certainly getting young people into employment and technical skills and stuff like that, but it's quite clear from what you've been saying is that we need greater leadership and management skills as well to support that talent pipeline and to drive through change. Have you thought about how that will be, first of all, people developed in that area and how that will be delivered?
Are you talking about the management of the LEP or the
No.
Oh, I see. In general.
Longer in the future. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll hold my hand up here. I'm
Yes.
developing executive education at Southampton University, and it's one of the things that we're interested in is how we can support the LEP and support the Freeport better.
Rachel?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. And it is very much part of our thinking. It's the higher level skills, how we can actually be developing not only young people, because I think now we all understand that developing and upskilling existing employees is as important as creating those opportunities. So part of what the Skills Advisory Panel and then actually only this week an expression of interest went in for the Local Skills Improvement Plan for the Solent region, which the Solent LEP is very much supporting the lead partners, Hampshire Chamber of Commerce and Isle of Wight Chamber of Commerce, to make that come to fruition. So we're in the first wave, so fingers crossed for that. And therefore that is very much highlighted in that as we move forward. So the new local skills improvement plans are very much going to be how we develop those higher level skills, bringing employers, because it's actually the voice of the employer that is important, who are actually then, which is why the employer-led body is actually the one that's putting it forward, and then that's where the strategies will align to ensure that we get the higher level skills. There's no silver bullet, is there? So we've got to do lots of offers in lots of different areas, joining all those delivering partners together to ensure that we meet those needs.
Thank you. Time for a couple more questions. If there's something which when you went away you were thinking to yourself, yeah, it was all right, except for, let's put it now. Right, yes, Kate, there, please.
Thank you very much indeed. Peter Taylor from Hampshire Chamber of Commerce. Really good presentations, and the strategic opportunities that we have are clear. Brian touched on the sense of collaboration over the course of the last 2 years, and I've certainly seen that and felt it. I think all of us in this room are invested in the idea of the Solent Freeport and Solent 250. The key to it in success is communication to those who are not here, who may be on foreign shores and considering investing in our region. How do we ensure that the communication of the strategic narrative for Solent Freeport and Solent 250 is communicated in a cohesive and apolitical way? And
Interesting.
I stress the apolitical way.
That's a great question. Brian.
Yeah. We've just gone live with our new website to coincide with this, which is a start. I know website's not everything, but we've been taking small steps here because although my comment earlier that once we'd been selected as a Freeport, we were always going to be one, we didn't want to go too early and we didn't want to set unreasonable expectations. So we've been working gradually with DLUC and central government to make sure we're not announcing things in a way that would embarrass central government.
Go on, give us without embarrassing anybody, give us a little preview. Who's been on the phone already?
But so all of the tax sites and all of the landowners in the tax site, we all get together and we've got an external marketing group. And what we are doing is all of the individual tax sites and the landowners are marketing themselves individually, but we're all doing it under an umbrella of the Solent Freeport. And what we are trying to do within that is not say, come to Fawley Waterside, not Marchwood, not fight against each other, but point out the unique strengths of each one. And going back to my point earlier, we've got somewhere that's got, in Dunsbury Farm, we've got somewhere that's ready to go. In the Navigator Quarter, we've got that rail and air access and the rail hub. In the water side, we've got the obvious water links. So we have got an offering which
if Aldi
allows us to...
If Aldi decide they can't put their distribution centre on the M3, it's all getting stuck, and they come to you and say, let's stick it in Dunsbury Park instead, you're just taking jobs from one part of the south to another.
Well, I go back to the site-specific agreement again. The issue about displacement, which you're touching on there, is absolutely key to the English Freeport legislation, which is they want jobs to be additional and not displaced. So in all of our site-specific agreements, that's in there. So we are not going to comprehend people moving. I mean, I think businesses will move because maybe they're coming with a big expansion, they're outgrowing their place, and they might move into a tax site as part of that expansion. But we have absolutely put in the site-specific agreements that people just moving a mile down the road to get a tax break isn't going to happen because they won't get it.
Alistair, that point about a clear narrative sent to the four corners of the earth, like one of your containers. We don't want just fresh air going back, do we?
We don't.
No.
So I think what's interesting, of course, is we have to realise that we've actually got we're not talking millions of acres here. We're not the Midwest with as much space as you want. And if we look at, let's say, our various tax sites at the moment, and there are those tax sites which are more advanced. So, for example, Aldrin and the work at Fawley Waterside, or the work that's been going on with Solent Gateway across the Old Military Port and so on, and some work we've been doing.
On Dibden Bay as well. You're keeping that for yourself, are you?
Why would we sell that? But no, the point is that the key piece is that the sites that are most advanced they all have very live and very real conversations happening now, which are conversations involving government and so on with international organisations to bring incremental new investment to the area and incremental new jobs to the area for a number of really exciting things. And we are working hard to move those forward as quick as we can. But it's fair to say there, the message is out there. The government UK is saying that free ports are out there, and people are very quickly identifying where they might want to be geographically, and those conversations are happening effectively.
And it's some of that is region specific, isn't it? You're putting the wind farms up on the northeast, and Rachel.
I was just going to come back to the point about how we're going to, again, as you alluded to, help business become involved internationally, and maybe how we communicate that so that we can generate that. And our growth hub is very much getting involved with that. The local enterprise partnerships, particularly Solent, are evolving, and part of their role is in that evolution is about the growth hub existing and carrying on, and how they're going to help develop the small to medium-sized enterprises as well as the large ones. But also part of that role is international trade. So increasingly the executive are being asked to look at how to get involved more internationally, and how we can then shout about what we do in our region internationally and globally. So hopefully that answers a little bit about, in the future as we come along with 2050, a lot more of our work is going to be how we generate those bridges and links, and our role is more than, we're pleased to say, sitting judging bids, this is now about how we can convene, how we can bring people together and use that knowledge we've gathered over the last 10 years to actually bring people together in partnership, rather than having to sit in a cupboard, as I said earlier, judging bids.
Right, thank you very much. A round of applause for those answers from our panel.